But it is great to be here, and it's great to be here in support of local business. It's been a tough year, to have a restaurant or a bar, and I'm not sure that government's making it any easier. From my perspective, I think government's job is to keep the peace, keep the law and order, enforce contracts, and try to stay out of the way of business, not get in the way of doing business. So I think we've gotten kind of carried away, particularly our governor and the current president. And the current president has exciting news. I don't know if you've heard this. On July 4th, you can gather with 2 other people that have been vaccinated, and you can very quickly pull your mask down for a little bit with them inside. Do you think President Biden gets out at all? I mean, what do you think he thinks? Really? He doesn't think people have already figured out if they've been vaccinated? Guess what? By and large, they have immunity. By and large, they're doing very well. The amount of people being hospitalized or dying after vaccine approaches 0. It's the same with infection, too. And this is the thing they're not telling you. They're like, oh, we only have 1/3 of the people vaccinated. Well, 1/3 of the people already got it. So we have a bunch of people like myself who got it naturally and have immunity now. Probably about 100 million of us. The official tally is about 32 million people have gotten COVID. But even the CDC, which is very conservative, says for every person who got it, there's 2 more people who got it. They just didn't know they had it. And if any of you have had it and you have children at home, you were sick and you didn't notice your kids getting sick, about half of them got it anyway, because the kids show very few symptoms. But the thing is, this is good news, and this is the good news that's being hidden from everyone as we put on more and more mandates, and as the governor keeps everything locked down in Kentucky, they're ignoring the good news. The good news is 1/3 of us have had it. 1/3 of us have been vaccinated. Of those over 65 years old, 85% have gotten the vaccine. They think we're too stupid to figure this out. Most people over 65 have figured it out. But in a free country, it's your decision to make. In a free country, you decide what your risks are. Every time you get in a car, every time you ride a bike, every time you get on a motorcycle, whether you wear a helmet, you don't wear a helmet, what you eat, all of these are risks you take. And in a free society, you make them. The government doesn't get to make these decisions. There's no precedent for what Governor Beshear has done closing down restaurants. There's also no authority for it. The state legislator in January revoked his powers, trimmed his sales, and took the emergency statute and said to Governor Beshear, you no longer have the right to do this. If you make an edict, within 30 days that edict expires unless it's approved by the state legislature. So how did Governor Beshear respond? He sued the state legislature. He found a liberal judge in Frankfurt, surprise, and that judge upheld this. So right now the state legislature passes a law, the governor objects, and the courts say the law is null and void. Now this is going to go to the Supreme Court, but this will probably be the most important Kentucky Supreme Court case in our lifetime. They're going to decide whether or not the state legislature has the power to restrict the governor's powers. And realize when they pass their legislation, all they're doing is amending their own legislation from the 1990s. When they passed the emergency legislation, I think almost everybody who was there thought it meant, well, if there was a tornado in Harrodsburg, the National Guard would come with water and blankets and shelter and take care of us for a few days till we got on our feet again. No one would object to that. But nobody thought that a policy lasting a year to limit how many people can be in a restaurant or a hotel or a bowling alley or a hair salon and how you operate your business, no one ever thought that could be done by the will of one person. Nobody who knows the history of our country believes that power should be concentrated in the hands of one person, that anyone should have unchecked powers. I don't care whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. If this were a Republican governor, I'd be telling you exactly the same thing. No one person should have that much power. The division of power, the decentralization of power, the idea that you have your local state legislator has a vote to determine whether he agrees with the governor, these are the fundamental concepts of a constitutional government. If you have no constitution, if you have no checks and balances, you will have unlimited power. Which brings about another problem. The governor put these edicts in about March of last year. We went 9 months with no ability of the legislature to push back. Why? They can't call themselves back into session. So frankly, I think one of the other reforms we need is we need to allow the state legislature to call themselves back in session. because otherwise the governor operates unimpeded with unlimited power till the state legislature comes back. This is an incredibly important issue, because while this governor has done things to involve and intervene in your business, you could even possibly, if you have a great imagination, imagine someone even worse. But the next time we get an epidemic, also realize that what we've done with the school system, closing the school system and shutting it down without an infection. Does anybody not question that? A few years ago, you know what used to happen, and it's happened during most of my adult lifetime. If you got the flu at school and 10, maybe 15 kids were sick, they'd close the school down for a few days or a week or two and let it smolder and abate, and then they'd open the school again. Do you realize we closed down every school in America without a kid getting sick? I'm not saying kids didn't get sick, but there were no epidemics. Does anybody remember an epidemic in any school before the schools were closed down? No epidemic. We closed them down to prevent this. But here's the question. At the time, they didn't know this, but we do know now, kids don't get sick from this. They very rarely get sick from this. They very rarely die from this. If you're under 25, you are more likely to die from a lightning strike than you are from COVID. Now, the opposite is true if you're above 75. It is a dangerous disease, and we should all acknowledge that. But we should also acknowledge something that Dr. Fauci won't tell you, refuses to tell you, and it's probably the most important thing I'll tell you today. If one of you gets COVID, or somebody in your family gets the disease, there is a treatment. But there is a window of time in which you must take the treatment. It's called monoclonal antibodies. If you begin to get a bronchitis, and you begin to cough, and you're getting sick, particularly if you have any age on you or any extra weight on you, and you begin to get a cough, at the earliest signs of bronchitis, you can get the monoclonal antibodies and they'll save your life. President Trump got them, Giuliani got them, Chris Christie got them. I have a family member with metastatic cancer who got them. You can survive this thing, but you can't wait. If you wait too long, I have another friend who got this in his early 40s. He waited too long and he was just about to go on the ventilator when he got to the hospital. They said the monoclonal antibodies don't work. So instead of these TV doctors saying, oh, the mask is so good, and if you'll just wear your mask is more important than the vaccine. No, it's not. 80% of the people getting this are wearing a mask. If you go into a hospital, you go to your local hospital and you ask your doctor, when he or she goes into a COVID patient's room, what kind of mask they wear. They're not allowed to wear a cut-up piece of T-shirt over their face. They wear an N95 mask. That's the only mask that works. So when Dr. Fauci came out and said no mask works, he was lying to you. But he was lying to you for your own good. It's sort of one of Plato's noble lies because you're too stupid, according to Dr. Fauci, to make any kind of rational decisions. So he just told you they all didn't work. And that wasn't true. The N95 masks work. The cloth masks don't. Surgical masks a little bit better, but still don't work that good. The N95 mask works. So if you're going to wear a mask, wear one that works. Don't wear the pretend mask like Dr. Fauci wears. He wears 3 pretend masks, even though he's already been vaccinated. So the thing is, he lied to us and said they don't work. Then a month later, he came out and he lied again when he said they all work. The truth is somewhere in between. Some masks work if worn properly, primarily in a hospital setting. The only randomized study of masks that was done in a hospital, N95 masks worked. The cloth masks were less than the control. So the people that didn't wear an infection didn't wear a mask got less infections than the people who wore the cloth mask. And yet, what are we doing? We're everybody around the country walking around with 2 or 3 cloth masks on, suffocating from these masks and not getting any benefit at all, according to the science. And then we have governors mandating all this stuff, and there's no science to back it up. The governor wants 2.5 million of us to be vaccinated before we get any of our freedoms back. What science is that based on? Now, you could argue, I'd still not be for him making these decisions, but you could argue if he was looking at the death rate or the incidence. He just came up with a number. He's pulled out this number from under his hat and says, we got to have 2.5 million. Well, really, the thing is he's discounting natural immunity as well. What about all the people who've had it? You know, as many people have been vaccinated, about that many people have also had it in Kentucky. If you add them together, I think we're doing pretty well. And if you look at 85% of people over 65, I think we're doing extraordinarily well around the country. If you look at the daily numbers, the incidence is coming down, the deaths coming down. We have a lot of good things going on. But we've crippled the restaurant, the bars, the hotels, the hair salons, I know someone in Bowling Green, she's been cutting hair for 30 years. She's always been a Democrat. She voted for Bashir, and she said never again. She's switching her registration. She has 3 people cutting hair for her. She can't do her business because of all of his restrictions. She's probably done 1/2 the income or 1/3 the income. So we need our freedom back. It's not that there's no danger. There are dangers, but we should all assess our risks on our own, and we shouldn't lie to people. So if you want more people to be vaccinated, don't lie to them. Don't tell them everybody's the same. Everybody's not the same. Kids have a much lower risk, and older people have a much greater risk. Weight is a problem for risk as well. Be honest with people. What else could we do if we want more people to be vaccinated, or we want to encourage people without telling them they have to do it? We could let your family doctor have the vaccine. In Bowling Green, we have a clinic of over 100 doctors. They don't have the vaccine. Walmart and CVS have it, which I'm fine with that. But for the people who are not yet deciding to take it, if you've been seeing your local doctor for 20 or 30 years and your local doctor told you, I've got it, I'll administer it, and I think it's good for you, you'll actually get some more people to get vaccinated. But the governor has not let the local doctors, get the vaccine yet. Why? No idea. But they've written him letter after letter, which has been ignored. When we look at what's going on in Washington, the response to the virus has been spend money. So everybody got checks, $1,400 checks. Here's free money. I'm shaking the free money tree, and we're spending it. We're giving it to you. Where did it come from? There's no money in Washington. There's no rainy day account. There is no savings account. I can't go over to the Federal Reserve and open some big safe, and there's all this money we can give to people. There is no money there. In fact, before all of this, we were running $1 trillion short. So we had $1 trillion deficit just from our normal spending. We added $3 trillion on top of that last year. We've already added $2 trillion this year. Biden wants another $4 trillion. It could be $6 trillion of debt in 1 year. We've never ever done this. We didn't do this in World War II. This is an amount of debt never experienced by a country in so short a time. What are the dangers? Well, one of the dangers is that people discover there's so much money out there chasing so many goods that prices begin to rise. You know, I'm sure there are some people, I remember the inflation of the 1970s. I remember the prime rate going to 21%. I was saving my lawn mowing money at the time. I remember putting it in a money market account and getting 18% as a teenager. But also the prices were rising rapidly too, so it would eat away from your potential to earn money. But we have to realize nothing in life is really free. All of us know that instinctively. I'm sure a lot of us cashed our check. Who's not going to cash the check they send you? But at the same time, we instinctively know that real wealth can't just be printed and given to you. But there are people in Washington now advocating you get it every month. $1,400 was so good. And look at the economy. Everybody's spending the money and the stock market's going right. Why don't we give you $1,400 every month? Well, people start to say, well, that might be a problem every month. Where's that money coming from? This has been an extraordinary amount of borrowing in a short period of time. I worry that the stock market's been bid way up and that there could be a correction. I worry about price inflation. We already have some. But you realize when they measure the official inflation, they don't measure the price of gasoline. Anybody not buy gasoline? Everybody buys gasoline. I think food's not in some of it too. So, I mean, inflation is a very select measurement that I think undercounts what we already have. But even the official measurement of inflation is about 1.7% a year over the last 10 years. That's 17% in a 10-year period. Do you think there are people who didn't get a 17% raise in the last 10 years? There might be. And who are they? They're precisely the people that the other side says, oh, we're going to help the working class. We're going to help the poor. Well, they give you money, but then the money buys less, and you think, well, gosh, I'm still poor. I didn't really get ahead after a while. It's what I call the big heart, small brain disease that sort of populates Washington. It's the same with unemployment. So if I add to the unemployment, we add $600 to about $300, which is the average. We're close to $1,000 a month. That's what we were doing for a while. How much is that? That's $50,000 approximately a year. What does that mean to someone who makes $35,000? Make $35,000, but I can get $50 for not working. That's not a it's an easy decision to make. People don't work. So restaurants and bars have had trouble getting people to come back. My wife showed me a thing from the internet from a McDonald's, and it was kind of a sad sign, but trying to teach us to be patient. The sign said, please be patient with us. There's only 2 of us working today, and, we're doing the best we can because we can't find anybody to work. And you've probably seen that. I've been to a couple of fast foods where the people back there are being overloaded, with work. But you just can't do it. It sounds like you're kind-hearted. I want to help people. Let's give them more unemployment. But when you do, what you do is you encourage people to stay unemployed. And here's the other thing, and people won't tell you this, but this has been studied over and over again, and it's absolutely true. The longer you are unemployed, the less likely you are to get a job. Think about it this way. Let's say I'm hiring 2 workers and I interview them. And for a while, they let unemployment go 99 weeks. So let's say one guy comes in, he's been out of work for 92 weeks, and then another one comes in and he's only been out of work 5 weeks. Who do you think I hire? Every time it's the one that's only been out of work, because there's something I'm suspicious about somebody who hasn't been working for 90 weeks. They can say it's not their fault, but I don't know. I want the guy who bounces back and is doing something because I know they have that work ethic. So what we've done is we create a class of people who've been out of work so long that the employers doubt that they're good workers and won't hire them. So what started out as well-intentioned to help people actually in the end hurt the very people you were trying to help. This is the problem of government in general, are the unintended consequences of well-meaning people. Most people in Washington want to help people. Most people in your government are trying to help someone, but it's the unintended consequences of trying to help people and creating and making the problem bigger. It's the same way with passing all the checks out. Oh, I helped all these people. I gave them all checks. The economy was closed down. And yet I created this massive debt, or government created this massive debt. And government now will be responsible for the ramifications of all the misallocation of the money that was passed out. One of the things that bothers me the most about what's going on now is this idea that we need to totally transform the country, that somehow law enforcement's not important, that we should defund the police, that we just be fine with no police. This is a radical notion that most of us years ago would have said, that's bizarre. Most of us would still say it's bizarre. But this is becoming a mainstream position now that we don't need any police, that we would defund the police. I think that's alarming. I think that's scary. I think it's a recipe for anarchy. We have cities now, Portland and Seattle, where they just don't arrest people. They maraud, they throw Molotov cocktails in the police car, they are burning the county courthouse, and nobody's doing anything. One of the mayor in Portland said, oh, it's just a summer of love. Well, not if you live in Portland and have to deal with these people burning your city down and causing millions of dollars worth of damage. So I think there needs to be law enforcement. I'm always happy to see them because I know what violence is like. I've been on the receiving end of it. I'm happy to see people in uniform who are armed, who are deterrents to people misbehaving. And so I think it feeds into this narrative, though, that everything about our country is terrible. Law enforcement is terrible, according to people, but so is America. America's a terrible place. Everybody's hateful. Everybody's a racist. Everybody hates people based on the color of their skin. I think it's the opposite, frankly. I'm 58 years old. I think every decade I've been alive, I've seen it get better. I think there's more intermarriage, more integration of churches. I don't see employers who discriminate. I know med schools don't, dental schools don't, law schools don't, nurses don't, UK doesn't, U of L doesn't. There isn't these problems that we once had. But I'll tell you what makes me the maddest, and this may upset some people, but I'm tired of people looking at Republicans and saying, y'all are the party of Jim Crow. No, we're not. The party of Jim Crow is the Democrat Party. They may no longer be, but all of the laws passed to restrict voting rights were done by Democrats. In fact, the most famous segregation laws passed in Kentucky were done by Democrats, and guess who fought them? Black Republicans. William Worley founded the NAACP. He was a Republican in Louisville. He fought all the way to the Supreme Court, and he won the case. Unanimous. It's called Buchanan versus Worley, to overturn Jim Crow laws that said a black man couldn't sell a house to a white man and vice versa. So I'm proud of my party, and I'll stand up to anybody who says otherwise. You know, I'm not saying the other party still is that, but they need to quit saying we are, because we were never that party and we're not that people. But I think whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, I don't think any of us are behaving that way. I think we're all becoming a better, more integrated society all of the time, and that we don't live with hatred in our heart or hatred in our motives. So I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of people saying America's a terrible country. I think actually that we're a country that is remarkable in prosperity and freedom, and I think they go hand in hand. That we got our prosperity from leaving people largely alone. I tell people I'm part of the Leave Me Alone coalition. You know, for the most part, I want a government so small we can barely see it. There are some functions, law enforcement, roads, and education, but it should be very minimal. And really, for the most part, I like to see it local. You know, I'd rather see a local sheriff or a local police department than I want a federal one. I like the idea that it's local and locally responsible. I'd rather see more of the money at the local level in your local government than in Washington. Because by the time it gets back here, it's filtered through several layers of bureaucracy and it's been mostly eaten up by the bureaucracy. But I think that we need to recognize what made America great. And I think what made America great was capitalism, trade, freedom of contract. And that we also had the undergirdings of law and order, the rule of law, that, you know, if you buy this restaurant and you have the title to it, that it's yours. Nobody can take it from you. And part of what law enforcement does, you don't see them doing it, but they're protecting the title to property. So property can change hands peaceably and wealth can accumulate. We're an incredibly wealthy country. And I think we will continue to be as long as we remember that government's not the answer to our problems. That really we are the answer. That it's our freedom, our ingenuity, and getting government out of the way is what made America great. I'm going to continue to fight for that, and I hope you will too. Thank you.
Need assistance with federal agencies? Please contact our Bowling Green office or visit our website.